Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize. We're about 2 minutes behind schedule. It's 4:32, so we'll go ahead and get the meeting called to order. I know this is typically our normal work session meeting day, but we do have a called meeting because we have a few items that we're going to do the public hearing and then do the work session item, and then we'll actually have some voting items coming up after that. A couple of things before we really dive in on the meeting agenda. The May 19th meeting, which is the third Monday, we are going to be moving that date to May the 22nd, which will be on Thursday the same week. We had a couple of conflicts come up, so we're going to move that date to May the 22nd so that we can still have the meeting. It will just be off by a couple of days. So we'll get the advertisements all put out. We'll get that sent out to everybody so that we'll make sure that that information is provided and that nobody's left in the dark there. For some reason the mouse wasn't working. We do have a couple of amendments to the agenda that was originally advertised. I know that a lot of you are coming in. It's the first time you've seen it. Looks like a lot. There's really just taking out some language on a couple of things on items 2, 3, 4 is just removing the additional language beyond the chapters. So for instance, item number 2, Pickens County Ordinances, chapter 4, advertising and signs. The original advertised agenda had the specific article, but then it became a little bit more broad and general. So it's amending the agenda to include the reduction down to just advertising and signs. Same with item number 3 is to change it just to the buildings and building regulations, removing the specific article. Item 4 is same businesses, removing the Article 2 section from there. And then a removal of item 5 since it's covering the entire business category under item 4. Item 6 is removing the Article 1 and just making it health and sanitation. And then removing items 7 and 8, those are the land development standards and land use intensity district maps. We're still working on some tweaks to get those finalized that we'll have ready to present at our next meeting. And then adding an executive session under the call meeting for the purpose of personnel. So those would be the amendments to the agenda if approved. I believe that's all. If you have more, I think that's the most amendments we've ever had on one, but it's just changing some language to make sure it matches correctly. Do you have anything that you see needing to? With that, do I have a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
So moved. I'll second the motion.
All right, moving second. Any discussion or question? Jump y'all. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, none opposed, that motion carries, so we'll move forward with the agenda. First item on the agenda that we do have is to go through a public hearing. I'd like to call a public hearing to order to look at the overview of amendments to the Code of Ordinances for chapters 1, 4, 16, 18, and 34. Bill's going to go through and do an overview for the public hearing portion, and we'll open up for any public comments that might exist as well, so that we can go through that.
Thank you, Chris.
Sorry,
Chris.
I forgot that you had actually said that I was going to advance it, so I apologize.
And some of this is, I have a hard time, every time I do this, I have a hard time seeing up here on the screen some things. So Lisa's got some hard copies if anybody wants them of the 10 frames that we're going to go through. This evening is the first of 3 evenings that we will be doing this in terms of amending some ordinances. The next one will be May 22nd, and then we plan to do another one on July the 21st. This evening, we're looking at Chapter 1, General Provisions, Chapter 4, Advertising and Signs, Chapter 16, Building and Building Regulations, Chapter 18, Businesses, and Chapter 34, Health and Sanitation. Then we'll be moving on in the next 2 primarily to land development standards and land use intensity districts and the map. That'll happen twice, the 22nd and then July the 21st. And we'll also take up an ordinance related to finance on the 22nd, and also one to create the airport advisory board. Okay, Chris. So here we have our chapters, Chapter 1, General Provisions, Chapter 4, Advertising and Signs, Chapter 16, Building and Building Regulations, Chapter 18, Businesses, and Chapter 34, Health and Sanitation. I threw 38 and 67 on here, but I put the line to demarcate the fact that we're not going to be dealing with them tonight, but a lot of the principles are the same, the underlying principles. And when we're looking at basically amending these, we're looking at two types of provisions, substantive provisions and administration and enforcement provisions. With regard to the substantive provisions, the function of these provisions is basically to promote, preserve, and to enhance in unincorporated Pickens County safety, well-being of the citizens and visitors, the quality of life of the citizens and visitors, and the beauty and character of the of unincorporated Pickens. A lot of things that drive this, we look at quality of life and beauty and character, as well as well-being and safety. Two of the things that are at the forefront of the minds of the commissioners and us as a staff is basically managing density and managing growth from a standpoint of trying to promote reasonable growth. And a lot of that is what drives us. Advertising and signs, I've asked Ashley just to quickly run through a few of the things that we've done there.
So there was things that we added and took out all throughout the entire chapter of the ordinances. There's only a few that are actually substantial. The first one is just a general change of the definition for sign clarity. The definition for sign, it was forever long before, and so we added a few things and took a few things out to make it make more sense with relation to what's actually in chapter 4 and the content of what a sign is. And then in general provisions, we had an illumination provision that basically said before that the light source shall not be visible from any point on adjacent properties, which is not realistic, and so we took that out to say that no sign shall be illuminated by lights that flash. We also added a location requirement. So previously there wasn't anything that talked about commercial signs being on any certain zoning for property. So in the new version of the ordinances, freestanding signs must be on property that's zoned either neighborhood, commercial, highway, business, or industrial, unless they are on a state highway. So if they're on 515, 136, 108, 53, they can be on any zoned property. But then there's the two more caveats that we're adding, that they have to be 300 feet from any other freestanding sign, and they have to be 50 feet from all structures. Then we move into the general permit. We've got one section of the ordinance that basically says these signs are permitted, they don't require a permit, you can do them, it's kind of like a temporary event sign, things like that. In there, it mentioned residential signs, and it had that residential signs could be up to 10 square foot with an aggregate sign area of 25 square foot. That we changed to be 5 square foot per sign, with the entire yard or lot not having more than 25 square foot of aggregate sign area. This will maximize the personal use and keep it residential. We also had an ordinance that said you could have 2 flagpoles per property. We changed that to 3 because there are many properties that have 3 to do the 3 different flags. And then prohibited signs, we have added one for signs mounted to fences. That has become a new thing. People want to build a fence and put signs all along it. That moving forward will be prohibited, whether the fence is functional or decorative in nature. So that's not going to include, none of these will include anything that already exists that would be grandfathered under the grandfathered portion of the ordinance, but moving forward, anything that is erected after, so like the date of the ordinance will be following these things.
Thank you, Ashley.
Well,
On Chapter 16, Building and Building Regulations, the substantive content has worked for us since we've been here. So we didn't really tinker with that a lot, but what we did do is we did a lot of reconfiguration of the chapter, because there were things that were bunched together in sections that shouldn't have been in sections in terms of different processes and things like that. So we basically did a reconfiguration of those, and there was a good bit of it. Chapter 18, Businesses. What we primarily did here and this required basically things to be done throughout the chapter, is we're trying to create an equal footing between businesses that are regulated here that actually are here versus certain businesses that are not from here, and they come into the county to do business sometimes over long extended periods of time, and they have not been subjected to the regulation because of the way that some of the items are written. And so we basically just changed all that because we're looking for that parity. We don't want to give an advantage to out of county. We're not trying to create an advantage for in county. We're looking for parity, and it's something that we thought was very, very important to do. Chapter 34, Health and Sanitation. We're going to look at that in detail as we get to the end of this. So that's a very much of a narrow rifle shot amendment that we're doing. So we'll take a look at it. I will say that when we get there and you see what we do, this will be a preview to how we're going to handle the May 22nd and July the 21st on land use and on land development, where we'll be taking a lot more deep dives and looking at the details on both of those dates. Okay, Chris? Get to administration and enforcement provisions. The primary objectives right there is we're trying to promote safety, well-being, quality of life, and beauty and character of the county. And the primary objectives there is to stop current violations and then to deter future violations. We're not trying to generate revenue by imposing fines. The fines are a tool. They are not the end result that we're looking for per se. And that's the way that we've approached it. There was a lot of work done on administration and enforcement through all of these 5 chapters that you'll be undertaking or taking a look at for adoption tonight, you're considering. We created consistency between all 5 chapters, and we added basically a full process in all 5 that's interconnected as it relates to the authorization that we have to do this, to administer and enforce. The responsibilities of various parts of the organization are spelled out specifically, defining and identifying what violations are, defining persons and defining persons who commit violations in terms of being able to deal with individuals, corporations, partnerships, and so on and so on and so forth. Setting up something that's clear with regard to what maximum penalties will be, and make sure that that's clear throughout all these chapters. Dealing with continuing violations. We have a situation where actually violations go on for weeks. And so we put in very detailed provisions on how to deal with that. Put in provisions regarding the officers and agents. What happens, you've got a corporation, you've got an employee of the corporation, and who's liable in that particular situation. We've got situations where multiple persons in a single situation basically violate our provisions. So we put something in all of these chapters to address that. We put in a clear provision that whatever we do from a standpoint of a fine or anything like that does not bar or eliminate something like a stop work order. In other words, an administrative action. We've put in provisions that spell out clearly what you all can do with regard to pursuing other actions, like any legally available injunction or any of those items. We've spelled out clearly the prosecution path and then the jurisdiction and venue. So all of that is very clear. It's chapter 1, the general provisions, which will be retitled if you adopt it, basically is the platform for all of this. But when someone is dealing with a sign issue or someone is dealing with a business issue, they're not going to look at chapter 1 to find out what the penalties are. That's why we've created these and linked them all together in each of the chapters. Okay, Chris? And then just some modernization and clarity. We have provisions in there about peddlers and itinerant traders. It's true. So that's going to go away, and it's going to be covered by the more contemporary concepts that are in the package that you have. We have throughout, well, let's say all of these chapters, well, 4, 16, 18, 34, 38, 67. We have a position that is prevalent in these. There's 9 different titles for that position. So we're eliminating all of that, and in doing that, we're also going to focus at the department level in the roles and responsibilities, and then basically the individuals. That's all right, Chris. Now let's go to 34. This is the amendment out of the health and sanitation chapter, and it is a division that exists in the code now, but there's nothing in it. So we're using this division to propose the amendment. And it's permissible and prohibited on-site wastewater treatment and disposal facilities. Very, very much of a rifle shot amendment. New provision in the division says permissible on-site wastewater treatment and disposal facilities. The application, approval, constructions, and/or operation of permissible on-site wastewater treatment and disposal facilities are governed by Division 2 and Division 3 of this article. That content already exists, and we may be doing something with it in the future, but that'll be in the future. Okay, Chris. Then we go to the prohibition of certain on-site wastewater treatment disposal facilities. All future privately owned on-site wastewater treatment disposal facilities in a residential setting, irrespective of capacity, which serve more than one parcel, lot, dwelling, and/or dwelling unit shall not be permitted within Pickens County. So that's pretty clear. If we get Chris, we'll go to the next. Then we just have some definitions there to effectuate that, so that basically people know what they're dealing with in terms of dwelling units and lot. So that is the chain in Division 1 of Health and Sanitation in its entirety. And that's basically the overview.
So before we open up for public comments, I'll open up for any board questions that you've got. I know that staff has provided you guys with copies so that you could review and study prior to coming in. So I wanted to make sure if you had any additional questions, and then we'll open up for public comment.
I'm good. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. Thank you, Bill. Open up for any public comments. If you would, just raise your hand and state your name. We'll call on individuals.
Chairman, just to clarify, that's for each one of the ordinances that you're calling for?
Yes, ma'am, for each of these 5. Well, with no public comments, do I have a motion that we adjourn the public hearing and move the remaining portion?
So moved.
I'll second. A second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
And opposed? We'll move to the next item on the agenda. And that is to go through our work session. This is where we have an opportunity for the staff to go through an overview from the latest public hearing on the most recent request for land use intensity district changes. I think Miss Ashley Craig Gooch is going to go through and do that portion for us.
Yes.
He just started using the whole name.
That's official.
That was good.
It was.
I'm
I asked for clarity now, so that I've understood.
I know, but now you said Craig, you can just flow right in.
It does. That way, when I mess up, it doesn't show up obvious that I did.
I like it. Oh, okay, so this month we had, I don't know, I've lost count. There's more each month, and this month was a bigger one. The first one we got is RZ 190909. This is for Mr. Hotink. If you guys will remember, he came probably it's probably been about 6 months ago and rezoned 2 tracts that were 3-acre tracts of ER. He's coming back on that same piece of land to take an additional acre from that 30.67 remaining acres of that initial split. He wants to take it to ER as well. The intent is to add that 1 acre to one of those previously split state residential lots. That parcel number is 002-001-007, and it's located at 119 Inland Drive. Currently, of course, it's zoned ag, And like I said, it's wanting to be taken to estate residential. You can see that the two that aren't shaded on the map are the two recently created estate residential parcels. And that one that's outlined in red is the part that he wants to combine with that lower estate residential lot. It is in the rural residential character area, which is consistent with the plan. The recommendation after reviewing the applicant's request, staff recommending approval of the 1 acre portion of the property. Sorry, Bill's right, I can't read that far. It's the white. It is, I need to change that. Okay, sorry. I did make the PowerPoint, did not realize that. So staff recommends the rezoning of the 1 acre portion designated as 002-001-007 from ag to ER with the following condition, which is that it must be combined with the adjoining 002-001-013. This is, of course, so it's not a standalone 3 acre required density on a 1 acre parcel. The planning commission then voted 6 in favor, 0 opposed to recommend approval of the rezone request of 002-001-007 with the staff condition.
I know that meeting's been made available for everybody to watch if you've had a chance to already review it, but if you have an additional question that wasn't answered.
I'm good.
The second one we had was Grace Paget on behalf of James Dean. That parcel number is 034084204. It's currently a 2.2 acre parcel, which is zone rural residential. The request was to take it to suburban residential with the intent to build, to split off 1 acre of that to build an additional home on the property. You can see right here, this is all family land right in the same area. I forget this doesn't work on the screen always when you use the laser. There's 4 lots that are right there that are all owned by family. It's that upper right hand corner parcel that, like I said, they're wanting to split 1 acre off of it. This one is also in the rural residential character area. After reviewing the applicant's request, staff recommended denial of the 2.2 acre tract identified as 034084204 from RR to SR. Approving this rezone would conflict with the comprehensive plan, which promotes primarily ag and small ag with some RR and ER lots. It's imperative that this area retains its rural character and remains classified as rural residential with that 1.5 acre minimum as previously established. The planning commission then voted 4, and this is confusing, 4 in favor, 2 opposed to recommend denial of the proposed zoning request. So they voted with the staff, 4 in favor, 2 opposed.
Questions on that?
Okay, and the next one is conditional use, 190908. This is for Dan Poole on behalf of Poole's Farm LLC. It's located at 8269 Highway 53 East, also known as the Jeep Fest property. It is a total of 2 tracts, one that was recently rezoned from RR to Ag, probably, I think it was in January, I wanna say. But that parcel is 051003 and 051003-003. The intent is to use 367 acres as event space for Jeep Fest, paintball, model airplane, and other church events. You can see on the map behind you, of course, that lower portion is what is primarily used in Jeep Fest and the paintball. And I know that some from the previously zoned RR tract is also gonna be used in the paintball, but primarily the rest of it serves as a buffer to other neighbors. So this is in the Crossroads community of Marble Hill. The recommendation on this one was that staff recommends approval of the request for conditional use of the 2 tracts that equal 367 acres, identified as 051033 and 051003-030. To be used as an event space for Jeep Fest paintball, model airplane club, and church events with the following condition. The applicant will work with staff to ensure that safety protocols are adhered to and that parking requirements and other applicable code requirements are met. The proposed conditional use aligns with the vision of the surrounding area as outlined in the Marble Hill character area. It has minimal impact on the nearby community being a part of the 367 acre property with other adjoining tracts owned by the same owner. The planning commission also voted 6 in favor, 0 opposed to recommend approval of the not rezone. This says rezone. Of the conditional use request, not rezone.
Any questions?
You good?
Perfect. The next one is Kevin and Karen Smith. Their property is located at 834 Worley Crossroads. The conditional use request is for an event space. It is a 20-acre parcel that's currently zoned ag. Parcel number is 065010. The intent is to use the 20 acres for an event venue for things like small events, farm tours, and cooking classes. You can see it's that parcel that's outlined in blue on the right. This is in the suburban residential character area. This is a long one, so get ready. After reviewing the applicant's request, staff recommends approval of the conditional use for the 20-acre property identified as 065010 to be used as small events venue with farm tours, cooking classes, and other related events with the following conditions. Cooking and related classes will be held on Saturday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. with a maximum of 12 participants conducted twice a month. Sunset yoga sessions will take place on Saturdays from 5:30 p.m. to 6:45 p.m. with a maximum of 20 attendees to be held once a month. Farm tours will be organized no more than 3 times per week between the hours of 10 a.m. and 5 p.m. Special events will include Vintage Market Days, which is scheduled for October on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. No lodging accommodations will be provided, but food and vendor will be present, while alcohol is prohibited. Cleanup will be complete by Sunday with live music permitted until 10 p.m. All lighting must be turned off by then. Jeep Fest is the second special event that they're requesting, and for that one, Jeep Fest will feature the off-site area for attendees to engage with the community and experience the farm. And all live music and activities allowed until 10 p.m. The proposed use is within the vibrant suburban residential character area, which is a community-focused environment that actively fosters and promotes activities designed to enhance social interaction and engagement among residents. With that, the planning commission then voted 6 in favor, 0 opposed to approve.
Fighting you here, trying to get it back to the screen.
Oh, sorry. I was like, am I clicking the button? Go ahead. You go to what you need to go
Sorry.
to.
So I know as we open up for questions, I do have 2 questions
Yeah.
on this one. I don't know if we're in going back to the recommendation
Yes.
with the conditions, were those proposed by the applicant
A
as to
handful
the
of them
conditions that
were.
they brought and self-imposed?
Yes, so they set a handful of parameters. They basically said, we do cooking classes, we do farm tours, and we do sunset yoga. And these are the exact hours that we operate with.
So they're the ones that did provide.
Correct.
That was
Yeah.
my first question. The second question, and I'm gonna go back to the map here.
Yeah.
The RR property that connects them to Worley Crossroads, where
Yes.
the road, is that also owned by the applicant, or is that
It's not.
an easement?
It's an easement.
Okay.
Is the road to get back there in good shape, like all that's?
Yeah, it's a
Good,
gravel
legit.
road and it's,
We don't have any issue with
I mean,
that.
it's, moderately wide, so you go through a little gate at the very front of the property and then you go on back. Staff has visited, and I know that some of the planning commission members drove through and went by as well. But it's a long shot once you get out there and you get onto the property, because it's a little haul to the house, but.
Can you go back to the conditions? I have a question.
Was that property owner in support, or have you heard from them?
I haven't heard, nobody showed up at the event to oppose. There was several people that showed up in favor. Nobody showed up to oppose, and we haven't heard of anybody after the application was submitted that was in opposition of it.
I have a question on the conditions about the live music permitted until 10.
Yes,
Is that just those Thursday, Fridays, and Saturdays?
yes.
Okay.
So that would,
Okay,
and the way, I don't know if it formatted different on here, but so you've got the cooking classes, sunset yoga, and farm tours that are like the 3 things that are gonna be consistent throughout the year. And then outside of that, you'll have one weekend that is Vintage Market Days and one weekend that is designated for Jeep Fest.
Okay.
And so that's for all 3 of those days.
okay. And so, so the Vintage Market is just one weekend, it's not every weekend in October?
Correct, yeah, it's just one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So like one would be Vintage Market Days, and then in September, of course, would be for Jeep Fest.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I'm good.
Okay. You want me to advance you over to it, or you?
Go ahead.
Okay. There you go. Sorry.
Thank
I had backed you up, so I was trying to get you back.
This one is 190911. It is for Brandon and Brett Rowland. This one was presented, it was withdrawn, and then resubmitted at a little bit different than the first time. It's 726 Highway 136 connector in Talking Rock. The request is to take a current portion of land, well, it's two different tracts. One is 1.19 acres and the other is 34.723 acres, which makes up the 36.62 acre parcel. The little 1.19 acre tract is rural residential currently, and then the 34 acres is ag, and they are requesting to take it all to estate residential. Those parcel numbers are 018-030 and 018-030-004. The intent is to combine and create a 7-lot subdivision zoned estate residential. You can see where it's at, and you've got that little out parcel on the right-hand side that is not related, of course, but the one that's halfway down is that 1.19 acre parcel. It is in the rural residential character area. And after reviewing the applicant's request, staff recommends approval of the combined 36 give or take acres identified as 018-030 and 018-030-004 from RR and Ag to estate residential to permit the creation of a 7-lot subdivision zoned estate residential, which would allow them to tear down and rebuild the existing structure located on parcel 018-030, which is the rural RR tract. The vision for this area aligns with the future land use map and the comprehensive plan, which encourages low density development and low intensity uses. Estate residential zoning mandates a minimum of 3 acres per lot. The planning commission voted 6 in favor or opposed to recommend approval.
Any questions?
Are they planning on 7 driveways on the 136?
They're not.
How many driveways?
Last time I had talked, I want to say, and I don't have to hold me to this because I can't remember. I want to say that there's 3 that they've got coming off of it.
You have shared driveways between the
Yeah.
lines.
Anything further? All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Those will be items that will be on our May 22nd meeting as far as voting items to be considered when we go into that meeting. Under new business, this is where we'll bring back some of the items that were covered within the public hearing. As I mentioned before, the staff did provide a copy to all commissioners for review prior to coming in. I know that we had the substantive overview at the beginning, but each member has had a copy, hopefully has had a chance to review those. First item would be the consideration and approval of amendments to Chapter 1, General Provisions of the Pickens County Code of Ordinances. It's an ordinance to amend Chapter 1 entitled General Provisions of the Code of Ordinance, Pickens County GA. If you've had a chance to review those, I would like to ask for a motion to approve the ordinance as presented.
Second motion.
I have a move and a second. Any discussion or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
None opposed, as is the case with all ordinances. We all get to sign these, so you can sign, we'll pass it down to where Lisa ends up with the final date. The next item on the agenda is the consideration and approval of the amendments for Chapter 4, the advertising and signs that was covered. Once again, you guys have had a copy provided. Hopefully you've had a chance for a full review and follow-up questions with the staff. And it's an ordinance to amend Chapter 4 entitled Advertising and Signs in the Code of Ordinances for Pickens County, Georgia. Do I have a motion to approve the ordinance as it's been presented?
So moved.
I'll second.
Moving a second. Any discussion or questions on that chapter? With none, all in favor?
Excuse me.
None opposed?
Sorry.
With me? Been trying to vote that one through as well, that motion carries. I was trying to mark the pages where it made it easier when we passed them over. The next item on the agenda is the consideration and approval of amendments to the Code of Ordinances, Chapter 16, Buildings and Building Regulations in the Code of Ordinances for Pickens County, Georgia. With that, do I have a motion for approval of the ordinance as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Moving a second. Any discussion or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
None opposed? Pass it. Big stack there, no.
Something not 3 different ways so far.
All right, next item on the agenda is the consideration and approval of an ordinance to amend chapter 18 entitled Businesses as the Code of Ordinances in Pickens County, Georgia. With that, do I have a motion for approval of the ordinance as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Moving a second. Any discussion or questions? None, all in favor?
Aye.
None opposed? Motion carries. Okay. All right. And the last on what was covered in the public hearing portion is the consideration and approval of amendments to the Code of Ordinances, Chapter 34, Health and Sanitation. Do I have a motion to approve the ordinance as presented for Chapter 34?
So moved.
I'll second.
Any discussion or questions? None, all in favor?
Aye.
None opposed? We only got to do that one more time, so, if approved. The next item is the consideration and approval of a resolution to authorize the initiation of the process to call for a referendum for new county SPLOST, in November. The current SPLOST that we're under does have a scheduled time for expiration in June of 2026, so this is a resolution. If I can move the post-it note where I can read the full heading. Resolution of the Board of Commissioners, Pickens County, to authorize the chairman to execute all steps necessary to enable it to call for a local referendum to be conducted on November 4th, 2025 for the purpose of allowing the qualified voters of Pickens County to consider the imposition of a county special purpose local option sales tax with a term of 5 years. This would be to include all documents, meetings necessary so that the process could begin and we can start that process of continuing the existing SPLOST with a new SPLOST as it expires. With that, do I have a motion approving the resolution authorizing me as chairman to execute all documents necessary?
So moved.
Second.
Moved in a second. Any discussion or questions on that? With none, all in favor?
Aye.
None opposed? Last one, get past it. Then we get to take a break talking for a moment, and Ms. McDowell is gonna come up and present a couple of items that will bring on budget amendments, 24 budget.
All right, so in your packets, we are coming up, actually the audit is pretty much completed, we're just finishing up the drafts, and the draft act for the annual report. With that, the entries for fiscal year 2024 have been completed, and we just need to clean up our, budget for the end of the year, just to balance things back out. As you will see in your packet, it's about a $226,000 difference, which is covered by the revenue that we have received in excess. So, of that 226,000 is 86,000 that was for subscriptions, basically off of the GASB 96, the way we have to record it. So it's just about the way that the auditors have to record these budget amendments, or budget adjustments throughout the year. And then we have 46,000, which is general government. Judicial was 12,000, public safety was 77,000, of that 226. So that is pretty much the summary of that. Like I said, the annual report draft will be out on May the 16th, and you should have the audit presentation in June. So.
That, before we call for a motion, anybody have any questions?
No.
With that, that, do I have a motion to approve the budget amendments as presented by the finance director?
So moved.
Second.
In a second, any discussion or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We will get that in place so that the auditors can continue to get theirs wrapped up. All right, that brings us to our public comments portion of the meeting. I'll open up the floor for any public comments. Everybody looks so
I
excited.
can't help it. Sorry I was late, I forgot about the meeting. I noticed on chapter 4 that you adopted, you didn't copy the city of Jasper's sign ordinance, did you?
No, sir.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Any other comments? With none, the next item on our agenda is an executive session. The purpose of the executive session would be to discuss personnel. So with that, do I have a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
Second.
In a second. All in favor?
Aye.
We will go into executive session. We'll be coming back and close the meeting as it's wrapped up. Thank you all for those that do have to leave. We appreciate you.